success. When we think about monetization, there's this notion of a performance model, and you're seeing a lot of advertising. On the one hand, advertising is moving towards a performance orientation, and on the platform side, there's the notion that you can actually turn platforms into a performance orientation as well, which is to say, we're placing bets on our developers who are going to go out there and do things with the platform, and we're going to go absorb the cost of what it costs to run the platform in the operational expenditure on a month-to-month basis, with the expectation that some folks are going to go out there and do some amazing things with the platform and generate the revenue for themselves first off, and then for the platform as well. So and I think that it is very unconventional, especially when you have, again, the historical bias associated with years and years of just paying license fees. But I think that you can, if you look at the history of Corona Labs and the fact that it has essentially switched hands twice, there needs to be an even strong. It's not enough for it to be only license fee driven or for it to be a successful model. And I'll dial it back to the first kind of interview and the first conversation we had. Again, we use Corona at Perth, and so we're learning about what we can do with it as a internal solution for ourselves. We use it to go build apps, and we just launched another app, and we're kind of called Perklinko, which is a perk app where it's basically Plinko with perk points and built on Corona, and it's working very well for us. And so we have that orientation around, well, it does work well for us. But when you think about it as a kind of autonomous, kind of division of the company, what can we do to make sure that we can take the platform from where it is today to being profitable, then taking the profits and then reinvesting in the platform growth for the future.
Yeah. And I would, as you were saying the real estate analogy there, I was thinking, if the realtor can come in and help you sell the house for actually more than you would have gotten it on your own, and even do that maybe in a fraction of the time that it would have taken you to sell it, I would gladly pay for that. So
yeah, and also say this, right? I mean, the other notion is, when you think about plugins, there is Corona, there's this association around. Plugins don't just exist. They have to be built. They have to be. You have a confidence in the plugin not just existing today, but continuing to be adapted to whatever is being done to the underlying SDK. There are stories of plugins that were once nurtured and then eventually kind of went stale, and then had and so you're like, well, if you're depending on a platform, you want the platform to be rock solid, right? That's the first thing, is to know that, look, this platform is going to be the way it is today, and it's going to stay consistent across, from 2 years ago to where we are today. And the irony here is, that was the overall thought process when people were paying a license fee 2 years ago. And so when you think about why these models are being employed now, is because, again, if you think about what that means, it's not enough for the platform to go out there and see the success it needs. Yeah, sure, you can go out and say, you can do a quick formula on, okay, well, if it costs $2,000 for a license and you multiply that by X dollars, it seems like it should be able to float the boat. But actually, the strategy is much more sophisticated and complex than that in order to see the kinds of things that the community expects to see in terms of stability of the platform, growth of the platform, introduction of a Corona marketplace, and a whole bunch of other things that I think we all want to see happen with the platform in order to be successful. And so I will say this we're figuring things out ourselves. I think that the notion of a ratio model, you've seen it yourself, where we threw out a ratio model out there and we said, hey, here's the way we're going to do things, and then we said, oh, you know what, maybe this needs to be revisited. And we actually went off and said, okay, well, maybe we're going to go from this model to this new model, because the community, it's just not palatable under any light, right? And so we're open to those ideas. We're open to thinking about those things, but we also appreciate it when folks understand that our goal here isn't that we're just some greedy platform that's out there trying to go out there and steal money from developers. Our goal is to go out there and look at the best possible chance of success and stability and growth for the platform first and foremost, and that's our mission essentially.
Yeah, you mentioned maintaining plugins. It's almost like having a child. You have to once you've created it, you're now responsible for it, right? And let's be real. Facebook and alone changes its API just about every day. So there's a lot of work involved to just maintain a plugin for Facebook.
Right, and I think again, I want to go talk about it again, but you think about again that 30% IAP rev share or the 30% ad network rev share, and it's in one way it's arbitrary, and in one way it's justified. There's different ways of qualifying why the rev shares are what they are, and I think it's important also to tell developers out there that you don't have to use the Facebook Audience Network plugin, right? I mean, I like to believe that it's better with than without, right? The alternative is to say, just kidding, no Facebook Audience Network plugin at all. Let's just go back to the way things were. And I like to believe that collaborating with the community, figuring things out, and saying, look, we're better with the plugin than without. It's an important aspect. It doesn't have to be binary. We like to figure out how to make it work so that the community can say, hey, you know what? At least I have a new option available to myself than one where I'm stuck with the 3 or 4 that I have right now, or I have to go build it myself. And that's important for developers to know that we're keen to support this in the future. We're committing when we release a plugin. We're committing ourselves to not just what today, for example, Facebook Audience Network just announced, I saw an article out there that they're now supporting mobile web, and that's just an example of them. They're adapting too. They're changing. They're evolving. And we want to support their evolution as they add more interesting things to their Audience Network plugin, to their SDK. And so I think that there's an orientation around, well, we're going to do our part and supporting it into the future.
Excellent.